Good evening and welcome to episode 4 of Tomorrow's World Audit Time. Good evening, Mark.
Episode 4, eh?
Yes, yeah. And even more excitingly, we're actually on some podcast services now, aren't we? We've actually this week.
Yeah, we're not just talking to each other.
Yeah. Hello to any listeners we may have gained. You know, there might be one or two of you out there.
Probably just our friends and family.
Yeah, but well, I mean, judging by my family's interest in my previous podcast, I would say probably not even them. But so today's episode comes from our teenage years, the 21st of October 1996. So it's something that we probably have a far clearer memory of than previous episodes. Yeah, any particular memories of 1996?
I don't know. I was thinking about this earlier today because I just turned 16 when this episode came out, a couple of weeks before. I think that there's a lot of music I would associate with this time. A lot of the music that I like, or learn to like around that time is probably around 95, 96, 97. I have fond memories of this time. I really do, actually.
Yeah.
I think partly because, especially from the perspective we're viewing it back on, God, the mid-90s were a really boring, simple time, weren't they? Nothing went wrong. It was all fine. Howard in the episode, spoiler alert, Howard is in this one. He talks about how, these ever-changing times or something like that. And I was thinking, what the hell are you on about?
Yeah.
What on earth?
There was a huge change happening, but I don't think it was particularly well understood or
No.
in the internet was here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I may have been 1996 that I first ever used the internet. It was certainly either 95 or 96 I first ever used the internet. But it was just a sort of intriguing distraction at the time. It wasn't. I don't think any of us had any idea of what it was going to turn out to be. But it has no impact on this episode at all.
No, zero. Amusingly so, in fact, with one item, which is, little to the manufacturers of one product know just how revolutionary the internet would be for them, or destructive to their business model, I suppose. But I did this. I was thinking that politically what was happening. We were at the kind of the scrag end of the John Major era of as Prime Minister, and I think even at that point, people were beginning to look towards the election in 97 with a sense of optimism, perhaps. Even though it was a long way away, because obviously it was inevitable. It had to happen by...
Well, I mean, things can only get better, Mark.
It's a new day is dawning, is it not? Whenever I think of him, I always think of the Good Friday Agreement. I'm paraphrasing, but I think when he was interviewed afterwards, I was signed at 3 a.m. or something. And obviously back then I used to sleep until, I used to be awake until 4 a.m. So I remember watching it. And he was interviewed very quickly, and he goes, "This is not a time for sound bites, but I feel the hand of history on my shoulder." I remember thinking, "Wow, you just can't help yourself, can you?" It's just it's like a fruit machine that's paying out, Russ? There's a nice metaphor you'd understand, but yeah, no, it was. Look, hey, I would like to think everyone's teenage years are simpler for a lot of reasons, but it really was a simpler time, wasn't it?
I think we were quite lucky. We quite enjoyed our teenage years. A lot of people seem to not like school or have a lot of trouble when they were teenagers. My teenage years was practically a breeze.
Yeah, well, I think I probably didn't quite enjoy it as much as you did. I'm not sure anyone enjoyed it as much as you did. You've carried on living your teenage. Some people try and go back to the teenagers. You've just managed to continue living them.
Yeah, and I mean there were a few programs I was enjoying more during my teenage years than these particular episodes of Tomorrow's World. But we'll get to that later.
Yeah, indeed. Well, we just. I have to say I don't recall watching this particular episode.
No. I would say if we're ranking it out of the 4, it's the second worst or third best.
Third best. It might be the dullest of them. Even the first one we did, I know we're probably ranking that as the worst just because it was unrelentingly bleak and dystopic, but it was entertaining.
Yeah. I think possibly because the technology is closer to us, it's less old-fashioned, and it's less weird. It's not, it's just stuff that you'd think, that's a kind of like an older version of what we've got, kind of thing.
Yeah, and there's also a couple of items in the show where you could easily imagine them being broadcast now, in terms of like the issue they're discussing, maybe not necessarily the solution, but the issue they're discussing is still an issue, and you can imagine somebody coming up with a brand new ways to deal with it, or something like that, which is not true of the previous episodes, I don't think.
No.
At all. No, for various different reasons. Yeah. Wow, I can't imagine how excited everyone is at home. Giving it a big sell.
It's the journey, not the destination, Mark.
Oh wow, yeah, okay. Whoever said that?
Yeah, so series editor at this time was Mr. Edward Ed Briffa. Surname, Briffa, Briffa.
Wow.
Which immediately made me think, when he takes the rubbish out, does he refer to them as the Briffa bins?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did work for the BBC quite a long time. He produced a few science programmes. But the most interesting thing is that the year after this, 1997, he was the person who was in charge of launching BBC Online, the whole of the BBC's internet presence. It didn't really have one. It had a website, but it wasn't.
I saw that at the end, yeah.
Yeah, because they showed the BBC website address at the end, which you can't access anymore. But there was no sort of whole presence, sort of thing. So the BBC Online was a big project to bring everything together and actually, and it was quite a big project at the time. But he only did that for a year, and then just disappeared off and joined the board of various medical companies. All like quite boring stuff. But so I don't think he's left a huge impression on the programme. But he also, weirdly, for somebody who started an online thing, has a very small presence on the internet. It's quite hard to track him down.
Cutting edge.
I just managed to find all this information on his LinkedIn profile.
Okay, so he's trackable then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's not completely off grid, but you think, I would think that someone who'd done an online project like that would have gone on to do something in the world of the internet. And you just wonder whether maybe he wishes he had done that, because he'd probably be a multi-millionaire by now. So the only other thing I would point out about this episode is that it's the first time it's ever been broadcast on a Monday. Obviously, traditionally it was broadcast on Thursdays, but in this year, it had been broadcast on Wednesdays and Fridays. So they're just moving it around the schedules, which... that's never good news, moving things around in the schedule.
Kiss of death.
On its way out. Oh, and the other thing is there's no studio demonstrations either.
Not a single one. Yeah.
All VTs. I mean, even Raymond had a girl to demonstrate.
He did have a... Yes.
Yeah.
It's probably no bad thing there's no demonstrations in the studio, because the studio is not set up to have any demonstrations.
It's not, is it?
No, it's not. It is. It's a real pound shop studio now. It's disheartening.
Yeah, it's just sort of like a big semicircular desks and a big wall of televisions.
But they're not even desks though. Like, they're not the right height. You can't sit on them. You can't put things on them. There is nothing on them. So and then it's just like a tandy display wall of televisions in the background. Oh. That's if you can see the set without, because your eyes are going to be immediately dragged toward Howard's trousers.
Howard's trousers. I'll admit, the main reason why I chose this episode.
All right, we better start then.
Vangelis wants his theme tune back, Mark.
Yeah.
It's Chariots of Fire light, isn't it?
Very light. Yeah. No, it's see, I think you prefer it more than I do. It just, I don't know. It just seems strangely half-hearted.
Oh yeah. I mean, I would say it's the worst. It's the worst theme tune we've heard so far.
Yeah.
Bland and derivative, I would say.
Yeah.
And I'm going to reveal it now, Mark. Its blandness is such that all knowledge of it has been sucked into a black hole of the internet. There is
that right?
No record of
along with Briffa
who this is by.
Wow.
What's it called? Nothing exists on the internet. It's not in the BBC archive. It's not on IMDb. It's not on Wikipedia. There's no versions of it on YouTube. I even tried Shazamming it.
Yeah.
Nothing. I found there's one person on the internet who's called PBSTE, and they're on a one-man mission or one-woman mission to track down what this.
It's a man, Ross. You know it's a man.
because for some reason they want to collect all of the Tomorrow's World theme tunes. I don't know why, and they've come to an absolute impasse with this.
Oh, wow.
And this isn't like from ages ago. I found this person posting on Internet February of this year. They're
okay.
on a message all going, does anybody know who this is by?
Oh, that's astonishing.
Yeah, and it's weird because it's every other theme tune, everyone knows who it's by.
So it could be by Vangelis.
It
could be Vangelis' left hand or something like that.
yeah. Just knocking out 2 TV themes with each hand.
Yeah, but the American broadcaster gets the full right hand treatment. But BBC Tomorrow's World, happy with one pass to the left.
Yeah. What do you reckon in opening sequence? My first thought was Nirvana.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll call out what the images are that they use to display Tomorrow's World. So it starts off with a baby underwater, very, very reminiscent of Nirvana.
It's in exactly the same position, the baby, isn't it? It's like it's
same angle, yeah.
Angle,
we're looking at the right hand side of their face. Yeah, and actually, something I don't know when these credits came in, but like Kurt Cobain died in '94,
right?
So I did wonder if it was some kind of tribute from Mr. Briffa. So we cut from the Nirvana baby is in and out, cut in and out of various different pieces. So then we have a foot on the sand, slow motion, leaving a very light tread on the sand. A foot on the moon.
See, I think what we've got there is symbolism, Mark. I think once again we've got Kubrick there. We've got the dawn of man. Yeah. And then the space age.
It's not quite as okay. There's a hands playing a keyboard. May or may not be Vangelis, but bearing in mind Vangelis is a bigger gentleman, I think it's not. And then that, I think rather cleverly, cuts, then kind of dissolves into the X-ray vision of the hands
I like to call that total recall vision.
Total recall vision. Okay, okay, I get you. Yeah.
When he walks through the airport security, doesn't he? He shows the skeletons and stuff.
Yeah, it is like that. We camera pulls back in a field and we see a pea pod which pops open to reveal ball bearings.
Yeah, I didn't understand that one. What's that?
No, that's I don't know. It's
robot peas.
I wouldn't eat them.
No.
Then we have a stop motion ant carrying a segment or a section of microchip.
I quite like that because I love stop motion.
I do too. Like it just felt a bit weird that it was a bit like in 1987 there was the guy with the plasticine face who was supposed to look like computer graphics.
Yeah.
With the ant, it was like I don't know. It's just I don't think you're supposed to realise it's stop motion because stop motion is not the technology of the future. Yeah, it's really weird. I don't get me wrong. I mean, it looks good. It looks like quite an angry ant. I don't know if you picked that up. Maybe I'm just reading into the ant. Look pretty angry.
A little bit into it, yeah.
Yeah. And it just seemed weird. And then the last kind of image is 2 robotic arms about to do some laser surgery on a patient in an operating theatre. Laser. That patient has no oxygen mask on, nor are there any staff around it. So only good can come of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a surprising lack of computer generated stuff though for 1996. This is the age of Independence Day, Jurassic Park sequels and whatever.
Yeah.
You'd think that they would go whole hog with some CGI monstrosities on there, but no.
It might be more than their budget could stand up to though, because proper CGI back then was expensive.
Yeah.
I know any old Tom, Dick, and Harry can do it now, but back then it was probably a bit beyond the grasp or the reach of a Tomorrow's World editor. I don't know. The whole thing just feels a bit weak. It's not inspiring. It's not inspiring, or and I don't mean inspiring as in you'll be inspired by the future. It's not inspiring in the sense that it doesn't really make you. Do you know your favourite TV theme tune or opening credits? Like provides such a kind of a warm feeling of comfort and joy, doesn't it? It's like you feel like you're for half an hour, or for 35 minutes, or 45, or however long the program is. You're being invited into somewhere that you really, really enjoy. I just can't imagine. It's quite cold, but the tune and the imagery, it's cold, isn't it? Like there's no real soul or heart. So the whole thing feels a bit kind of half thought through and kind of mangled together. The fact that there's no presence on the internet, I think, probably says as much as anyone can say about the opening credits.
Yeah. It's the most it's got to be the most unloved title sequence in Tomorrow's World history.
On a program that is possibly increasingly unloved.
Yeah. That baby, though. I mean, do you reckon that baby knows that it's on this? Like now? I mean,
Well,
it's a fully grown adult now, isn't it?
Is that baby? Do you think that baby knows it's on this? I think that baby might be. Yeah, I don't know. Well, I mean,
it'd be really annoying claim to fame, wouldn't it? He'd like, oh yeah, I was on the Tomorrow's World opening titles when I was a baby.
No way, were you?
Yeah, let's look it up. Oh, can't find it. I promise you I was.
Yeah, I suppose they'd be 25, 26 now. Do they know they're on Tomorrow's World? I'm sure they do, but I'm sure they've also forgotten. And not the experience, I hasten to add. I just mean, like, I'm sure they've forgotten that their mum and dad was proudly telling them that they were on the credits.
Anything else to be said about this?
Again, that set, which is so uninspiring, isn't it? It's like 9 years on from the 1987 episode, which you know, it felt like that episode on that week was like the centre of activity.
Yeah.
And, you know, like the studio was this hub of exciting demonstrations and all these little VTs that had a little bit of care and a little bit of heart and soul kind of baked into them, and this just feels cold.
I would say, yeah, easily the most exciting thing in the studio throughout the episode is Howard's trousers.
Howard's amazing trousers. I mean, the whole outfit is shocking, but the trousers in particular. So I'm very happy to describe this. So it's kind of it's a suit jacket with 5 black suit jacket, that kind of lovely sheeny material suit jacket, that cheap material suit jacket thing with 5 silver buttons on the front, which is a shocking amount of buttons for any suit jacket.
That's a sort of like dictator levels amount of buttons, isn't it? But it's one oversized as well, like that sort of 90s slightly.
Yeah, I was about to say this is very of its time, and actually there was one thing that you and I kind of both agreed in the notes when we were writing this, was that, you know, it's in the last few years you really get a sense of what the 90s look and feel like. In the 80s you knew what the 70s were, and you know, in the 70s you knew what the 60s were, like in terms of how people looked, how things sounded. And I think it's taken a while for people to appreciate that the 90s has a kind of aura around them. And it's watching this episode, it just feels incredibly 90s, starting with his outfit, which is really 90s. He's wearing a black shirt with his black suit jacket and what can only be described as, I don't know, a kiwi green tie.
Yes, yeah. And I believe around this time, Chewits had a tropical fruit flavour that was identical in colour to that.
Oh, more bloody BBC product placement. And then the trousers, which I can only describe as...
They'd make a golfer blush.
Reverse Rupert the Bear.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, they're kind of mostly black, but they have these kind of horrible yellow grids on them that are far too big and just nowhere near a nice yellow. It's an astonishing look. Really, genuinely horrific. And we have to see it multiple times throughout this episode.
In these ever-changing and confusing times, it's a comfort to have around us those special national monuments that you know will never change. Big Ben, Paul Gascoigne, the London Cabbie. Did I say the London Cabbie? Well, actually, they could soon be an endangered species, now that their hard-won knowledge has been transferred onto CD-ROM. Meet the car that knows every road in town and doesn't want a tip.
Well, we're supposed to be the best in the world. We've had licensed taxis in London for, over 300 years now. And London's grown, and so there's the topographical requirements, I suppose.
It takes a cabbie, on average, 3 years to learn the knowledge, the entire street map of London, and how to navigate round it.
I think the pass rate is something about, they get 2 through out of every 20. Will actually sign on and complete and get the badge at the end of it.
It's a considerable investment of time and effort. So I dread to think what the reaction would be were they to learn that you can now buy the knowledge in an electronic box courtesy of some friendly German technology. It's the first car navigation system to map the whole of London in all its detail.
GPS.
Yeah, giant GPS.
We've started big here.
Yeah, no, so this isn't... Yeah, no, nothing. Yeah, you're right, yeah. Nothing,
it's one of the inventions of our age.
Yeah, really, truly, yeah.
However, I don't think it would have really got off the ground if it was the size of this thing.
No.
Which takes up the boot, the capacious boot of a Jag.
Yeah. The entire floor of the boot lifts to reveal the comically large I don't know, a computer, CD-ROM drive, battery, I don't know what it is. So I suppose a satellite transmitter of some sort. It's absolutely, it's awe-inspiring how large it is.
Yeah. Oh, well, this is the interesting thing, is that the fact that it was on a CD-ROM appears to be the
selling
thing that they concentrate on, rather than the fact that it's this amazing satellite thing.
Yeah.
They barely mention, but I guess that's because they're talking more about it as a consumer product than anything else, so they just not really bothering to go into the technical details. But they decided to test out this consumer product on those famously modern and easily swayed people.
True, and completely unbiased.
Yeah, black cab drivers.
Yeah. I will say, I really enjoyed how he described how only 2 in 20 people pass the knowledge. A shorter way or a simpler way is end up being 1 in 10. I don't know why he needlessly overcomplicated. No, it's an odd choice. I mean, I get the idea, but it's really an odd choice because like the last people who would ever support the idea of the technology that Howard's trying to shift would be taxi drivers who this absolutely will end up sort of destroying their industry. Not GPS in terms of people using it on their own, in terms of people navigating the streets of London when they're driving, but more the fact that it opened up the entire kind of the Uber style, lay tradesman style minicab thing, where like anyone can now drive from Camden to Ali Pali.
I think this was the most entertaining of the VTs of this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Howard bringing his trademark lightness, a touch to it,
and a much better sense of fashion.
Yes, yeah.
In that he looks normal. Just normal Howard.
You can't see his trousers because he's being
That's
shot
true.
waist up in the car.
That's true. Maybe that was deliberate.
Yeah, and I found the cab drivers. They obviously went in there and went right. Which ones of you in here are traditional cabbies character types that we can put on television? The most talkative one has got an excellent cab driver voice where he does sort of is it eroticism? Is it where you
drop the
sort
R's?
Of traditional sort of where you
absolutely an absolute riot.
Yeah, the absolute riot.
One of the richest cab drivers in London.
Yeah, lovely stuff.
Yeah, he's brilliant. I love him. Yeah, they're all 3 of them are class acts. A nice little bit of charisma. They know it's a fun thing for television, but they also seem quite genuinely interested. Because I'm sure it's probably the first time they've seen it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And Rhea probably didn't envisage at all that the threat that it would be to them.
No.
And they're probably all retired by the time it came around anyway. So
yes.
So they got away with it fine. I was confused at first by when Howard went to he goes to a showroom, which I thought was a car showroom, but the man in the showroom's German. But then it's because the
Blaupunkt.
It's a Blaupunkt. He's not a car man. He's a Blaupunkt man.
It's distinctly possible that car in that showroom was the only one in Britain that had this equipment set up. And that's where he thought he'd meet them. Nice bit of advertising there again. I'm watching.
Yes. Yeah,
it's not too late to complain.
Well, Blaupunkt still make GPS. They still. He only said what you'll need is a travel pilot. They still make travel pilots. But one wonders who for? Who's buying a GPS system in this day and age when we all have phones?
I don't know.
I mean, I've thought about this before. Like being the manager of TomTom or any of the other companies, and then seeing the iPhone come about and the subsequent phones, you must have gone, "Oh God, our business is dead." Because the mobile phone to me is totally rendered these things obsolete.
No, absolutely. It's a complete game changer. I don't know what... TomTom's still around? Yeah, probably. Because I imagine, there's probably still plenty of people who like the idea of having a dedicated unit.
Yeah.
Not least because, obviously, I suppose the downside of having a phone that does everything is that maybe you don't want your phone just attached to the window and, not being able to do anything other than guide you out or guide you to wherever you need to go.
Yeah.
No. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting watching this and knowing, that certainly not even within our lifetimes, but in like half our lifetimes, it's already gone as a... I mean, to be honest, that idea of all that stuff in the back of the boot, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's absolute nonsense.
You wonder what all that stuff is.
I've no idea.
Because
makes no sense.
Even the fairly early ones that I saw that people would fit into their cars, they were still only like a little box, not much bigger than a mobile phone.
No.
So I wonder what it looks like. He's fitted like a whole
entertainment
studio
system
in the back there. Yeah.
Actually, do you know what? Maybe one of them is like a 10-disc changer. But maybe one of them is just a music thing, and actually, all right, we'll give him the benefit.
Driving around just the Kraftwerk all the time. His Blaupunkt Jag. Yeah, so GPS, obviously, it's one of the wonders of our age. Wholly owned by the American
military
government.
Yeah.
They first came up with the idea in 1973, and they launched all the satellites in 1978. And then Ronald Reagan, President of America fame, he was the one who signed off a thing in the 80s to say, we won't use this for military stuff, we'll use it for civilian stuff as well, and opened it up to people. But it's only sort of in the 90s that like the technology developed to allow, consumer use. But the thing is, America obviously still has the ability to just take it away whenever they want or restrict it. And so obviously, loads of other countries not wanting the Americans to be able to shut this down. They're developing their own systems. Russia's got one, China, India, Japan. The EU famously has got building one as well. But I don't think any of them
are up there.
Apart from the Russian one, none of them have come online yet. Seems a bit excessive to have that many of them, but
well, as we'll discover later, it'll cause serious problems up there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Howard's GPS there, he said, has a accuracy of up to 5 meters. The modern day ones that we use are accurate up to 30 centimeters.
Oh, that's
an
good.
improvement.
Yeah, like 5 meters isn't bad, but in somewhere like London, which is quite an intense. It's not a grid. It hasn't got these huge boulevards where there's lots of little small roads that are 1,000 years old. Yeah. That you could be really off.
Exactly.
It could, so 30 centimeters. And I always thought it was that the Americans that restrict the accuracy of GPS as well.
They used to.
They don't anymore.
But they
30
don't
centimeters
anymore,
is pretty
no.
good. Yeah.
No, they got rid of that a few years ago.
Cool.
And the only other thing, talking of accuracy, there's the whole thing about how when something's travelling faster, time moves slower.
Yes.
Like, to do with Einstein's theory of relativity.
Yeah.
Because these satellites are going around the Earth really fast, they have to take that into account because the way they work is on the accuracy of the clocks.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to change the time in them ever so slightly, quite regularly, so that they're accurate with Earth. And if they didn't do that, they would go out of whack by 10 kilometres per day.
Really?
Because they're travelling through time at a different speed to us.
Okay, that is quite interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, that is quite interesting.
Yeah.
10 kilometres a day.
That's what it said. I mean, Wikipedia, but it was a sourced thing. But yeah.
Well done, GPS.
What? South of the river this time of night? You must be joking.
Now, if you suffer from arthritis and you've just got pregnant, chances are you're experiencing one of medicine's weirdest phenomena. Your symptoms have simply disappeared. In fact, 7 out of 10 women with arthritis go into remission when they become pregnant. Well, now a doctor in Philadelphia is claiming he can use this strange effect as the basis of a new treatment. He's excited by his early results and is preparing for the bigger trials that might persuade a sceptical medical establishment. All through college, Sue McGarry was a dedicated athlete. But then, at the age of 23, she was diagnosed as having rheumatoid arthritis. The effect was devastating. In a matter of months, she changed from a person who could run a marathon in under 4 hours to someone who couldn't dress herself or even hold a cup of coffee.
Medical section, Mark. I've made my views clear on medical sections in the past. This one has done nothing to change my mind. I don't enjoy the medical sections. Obviously, they're very worthy. But the thing with medicine is that, I don't know, they throw all sorts of things out and you don't know whether it's going to happen or anything. And everything takes so long to develop, and then they might develop something else afterwards, or it just lacks interest. It's just people getting injections and sitting in hospitals. Yeah.
Worthy is right. And arguably, I mean, for those involved, they're the most important elements of any Tomorrow's World. I don't know if we've seen a Tomorrow's World yet where there isn't a medical section. We may never. I doubt that we will, just because I suppose, arthritis, and I'm sure you'll tell us whether arthritis is made into the future or not, but actually it's really debilitating.
My mum's getting a bit of it these days in her old age.
And some of the imagery that they show in the piece of the kind of deformity is really unpleasant and really unsightly. And I have an uncle who suffers greatly from arthritis. And it is incredibly debilitating. It is incredibly serious. It doesn't make for great TV, unfortunately. But, worthy is correct and important is also true. But it's... I suppose you feel like you have to kind of get through... You have to kind of sit there and eat your vegetables.
I will, however, jokingly, next time I speak to my mum, suggest that she gets pregnant to help her out. They've discovered that pregnant people, some of them, it helps get rid of their arthritis, is the main thing. And Shanaz Pakravan, our co-presenter, goes all the way over to America to chat to some of these people in Philadelphia, I think it is. Shanaz Pakravan, born in 1957. She's got a Persian. Her name is Persian, so that's her family background, I presume. She was educated at Moreton Hall School, a girls' independent boarding school in Oswestry. So she might be the poshest presenter we've had so far. I think all of our previous presenters have been state educated.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
which is interesting. I remember her being on everything back in the mid-90s, which is curiously absent these days from things, but she seemed to be on everything. But I discovered the reason why this is because she was a presenter on both Channel 4 and the BBC. So, which is, I think, it's quite unusual. Normally presenters are either on one or the other, but she was on both. She presented Channel 4 News at one point.
I remember that.
Also, before I enjoyed this bit. Before she did all this, she did some acting, and she has quite an interesting. It's all very sort of minor roles. But see if you can spot a recurring theme, Mark.
Okey-dokey. I'm already getting uncomfortable.
She started in 1988.
Yeah.
Her first role in Screen 2, Doctor in Hospital.
Okay.
And she was in an episode of The Bill as Doctor. Yeah. And she was in A Quiet Conspiracy as Dr. Debaloo. And then she was in a couple of things. Oh, no, she wasn't a doctor in a couple of things. Then she was in Drop the Dead Donkey as Indian Woman. Then she was in Casualty as a pharmacist. Inspector Morse as a doctor. So she's the clear choice to front this medical section of Tomorrow's World. She has probably about as much medical experience as Judith Hand claimed to have in that previous episode. But she went on. She went on. She did some more stuff on TV. Did stuff at Al Jazeera, and then she decided to start becoming a PR communications type person. And now she works for an NGO called Make Mothers Matter as their head of communications.
Okay.
So she gets some of that sweet NGO gravy now.
Well, we know that's the sweetest of all the gravies.
It is. This obviously takes her on a nice little holiday to Philadelphia, where she meets Dr. Bruce Smith.
Yes, who... Well, first of all, I knew it was Philadelphia because I recognised the taxis from Sixth Sense.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, that's Philadelphia. That kind of red, yellow taxi. Yes, so, and I'm just going to say what we're all thinking, Russ, because everyone's watched this and they're all thinking the same thing. He looks like a slightly cuddlier Harold Shipman.
He does. The Shipman is strong with him.
It's uncanny. In fact, I'm shocked you weren't the first person to write it in our shared notes.
I'll tell you what. I think the accent put me off. It didn't occur to me when I first watched it. Weirdly, even though there's like sort of close-ups of him filling syringes.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, I shouldn't laugh about a mass murderer, but like it's the chilling lack of hatred and murder in his eyes that kind of distract you from the fact that he looks like Dr. Harold Shipman. The fact that he seems to have empathy and care.
Yes, yeah. I think of the two people, I think I'd prefer to be treated by him. Definitely. Can you hear me?
Well, I mean, to be fair, he's the only one who I believe is still alive. So yes.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
But I will say this: I'm sure he's fantastic. I would still double check my will before I left the surgery.
He's still working. His name is actually Dr. Jackson Bruce Smith. So
that's a good name.
J. Bruce Smith he's known as over there. But he's still working in the same hospital. But he's not. He's just listed as a person that works there. There's no sort of J. Bruce Smith discovers miracle arthritis.
So he's not celebrated.
No. It seems like it was a bit of a dead end in the end.
I'm assuming nothing came to this.
There is something which I think may be connected, but it's not quite the same thing. So what they do, there is this thing that they do where you can go into a clinic, and obviously being American, you pay for everything. You can just get these things done. No, as long as you pay enough for it. But you can go in and they'll take out a load of your blood, and then they will filter it so that you've got your plasma with your platelets in it. So it's called platelet-rich plasma therapy. Mm-hmm. And once they've got that concentrated platelet mixture, they find wherever your arthritis is, and they re-inject it. And apparently that has a very similar effect in it. Like makes the pain go away and helps.
Okay.
Helps it. So I feel like that maybe that is in some way connected to this.
But he's not, as far as you can work out, he's not involved in that. No. He may have kickstarted it, but okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I suppose that's also what made me. Well, I suppose I did feel a bit sad watching this one, especially I suppose the medical ones were like you see really earnest people who are clearly suffering, and you kind of know that it probably doesn't follow through. I suppose you feel a bit sad because they are so optimistic.
Yes, yeah.
I do anyway, yeah. I'm sure Harold Shipman wouldn't care, but I care.
Now, space is already full of satellite systems the world has come to rely on. Money markets, military defence, the telephone system wouldn't work without them. And in 3 weeks' time, they'll be joined by the first of 66 new satellites, part of the billion-dollar Iridium project. It's designed to make mobile communication possible across the globe. But some scientists are now warning that projects like Iridium will pack the skies so full that space junk could trigger a chain reaction that would cripple the world's economy. Jess Nelson reports.
The biggest crash in history. Tons of metal hurtling through space at a staggering 22,000 miles per hour. Billions of pounds of technology destroyed, the planet brought to its knees.
This is one of Britain's most secret military bases, the early warning system that would detect the unthinkable, a nuclear attack on the United Kingdom. In here, it's crucial they track the position of every object that orbits the Earth, making sure they could spot a missile among the multitude of other satellites.
Working 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, Fylingdale can track an object the size of a football more than 1,600 miles above the Earth. In fact, this station tracks over 8,000 objects as they circle the globe. But amazingly, only around 400 of them are fully functioning satellites. Most of the rest is junk, spent rockets, battered boosters and broken satellites.
Do you know what, Ross? I'm feeling a bit travel sick. Ugh. Ugh. All those Dutch angles, Ross.
Right, I want to talk about the presentation of this, because this is the most egregious example of the presentation which is throughout this programme, and it's what makes it so very 90s, and I think it is terrible. And number one, the Dutch angles. There's even a bit in that where Jess Nelson, I'll come to him shortly, but Jess Nelson is walking through the lab.
Yes.
And the camera is tilted to to the right.
Correct.
It then straightens up as he walks towards the camera.
But then keeps going.
I'm thinking, phew. No, it's going back over the other way. It's gone to the left now. No. There's more Dutch angles in this VT than there are on the average episode of the old 1960s Batman.
Yeah.
It's all over the place.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it's meant to represent, or is it that they're worried that it's too boring without this weird angle that we're looking at people? I don't know.
It also does something that, again, do you know what? If there's one problem with us watching these episodes 3 times before we talk about them, is that the shock of some of these things slightly wear off by the 3rd viewing. It has something else. In the previous article, in the previous piece with Dr. Shipman, they make this weird choice of, he's in a lab, he's leaning into things and he's filling things, perfectly normal, anyone can picture the stock footage of someone in a lab, but they've just lit it in such a weird, bizarre way. Like they've turned off the main lights and they just kind of have all these backlights of like red and blue, and it's and they do the same thing here again.
That was the second thing I was going to say.
I'm sorry.
They have these bizarre it's mainly pinks and reds and things like that. As it's like I'm wondering, because I mean this is what pretty much height of the X-Files craze. I'm wondering, because there's a lot of nighttime shots in the X-Files, whether there's some sort of influence from that. Because what it looks like is, it looks like the thing in Hollywood where they have somebody working in a lab at night and it's lit artificially.
Yeah.
Because labs are famously bright environments.
Yes, famously.
But none of that is reflected in any of these things. Everyone appears to be working in near darkness, like it's some sort of noir film or something. And it's bizarre. It really is.
I mean, you saw the X-Files. My assumption is that it's kind of the tail end of that kind of early 90s youth TV explosion, where, television for the youth. I'm thinking about like The Word, but also there was all that Deaf 2 stuff that used to be on BBC 2. Do you remember, like a kind of 6 o'clock on a Thursday or whatever? And to indicate that, hey, this TV wasn't for your dad, and they just wouldn't buy a tripod. And, the camera was kind of chaotically moving, kind of zooming in, zooming out. Not with the lens, but like literally the camera kind of rushing in as somebody was speaking to kind of indicate some kind of youthful energy and vibrancy. And it just kind of feels like that, where it's like, I suppose one of the issues I have with this Tomorrow's World is that it feels like, and I might be wrong, but it feels like the people involved have lost faith that the stories they're telling are interesting enough to keep people entertained and still watching. So they have to zhuzh it up with all this kind of nonsense, like the Dutch angles and the lighting. You don't, but at the same time, we are talking about a program that is clearly struggling. So maybe they're not wrong. I don't know, but that's how I felt about it. It's like it felt like it was that kind of youth TV, the kind of the Janet Street Porter era. Style, the White Room with Mark Radcliffe, all that. It was called the White Room.
There was a lot of dark,
The Big Breakfast.
There was a lot of dark and strangely lit television back then. I mean, like Games Master was all dark and stuff like that as well, wasn't it? Maybe they're assuming that on a Monday evening, people are still want to come down from a rave at the weekend. What we did in the 90s.
It makes sense actually. You're right. Well, hang on, but if I was going to come down from rave, the last thing I'd want to watch is television that has no sense of orientation.
But at least it's nice and dark, so it's easy on your eyes.
It is, that's true. It is. You're not wrong, Russ.
Speaking of illegal music, that does very weirdly allow me to segue into the presenter of this piece, Jess Nelson.
Jess Nelson.
I'm instinctually dubious of somebody who professionally calls themselves Jess.
Professionally,
obviously.
So if somebody in your personal life happened to go by Jess, you'd be okay with that.
If I happen to know any Jesses or Jesses,
that's all right. But professionally,
that's fine. I don't think he would, present his business card and it would have Jess on it.
I don't know.
So I was prepared to not be a fan of Jess Nelson, and I don't think he doesn't bring a lot of personality to this particular segment. However, he has one of the most interesting career paths, certainly from the perspective of what we're doing. So Wikipedia describes him as a jazz broadcaster, which makes him Jazz. And born on the 1st of April 1964, and he attended Dulwich College, another posh school. The rot's set in, Mark. The posh people are taken over already.
Yeah,
but he presented Tomorrow's World quite a long time, 96 to 2000, as a roving reporter. And he got the job because he presented a kids' science show called It'll Never Work, which I'd forgotten existed.
I remember that, yeah.
But when I watched a clip of it, I went, oh, yeah. Especially because it's got a very memorable theme tune, which is quite enjoyable.
Oh, I remember that one.
But, and this is the interesting thing, as I said, he's a jazz broadcaster, and jazz is his first love. He set up, in the mid-80s, he set up a pirate jazz station. I don't know how popular is a pirate jazz station. But he set that up with Giles Peterson, his lifelong friend. His lifelong friend, Giles Peterson, the famous DJ. And they started this pirate radio station called K-Jazz, which went on for 2 years, and then Jazz FM was launched. And he went to work for them instead. While he was there, he presented a nightly program called Something Else. They made him. Does that Something Else make you think of something? They made him redundant, gave him a £500 redundancy check, and he started Something Else Productions.
No way.
And any listener to anything really, but podcasts or radio programs, would recognise that name because they produce everything, huge amounts of stuff. They're the largest independent radio producer in the country. They've got all sorts of podcasts. Obviously, no podcast as good as this, but plenty of big name ones. I think probably the one we listen to mostly is the Kermode and Mayo one.
Yeah.
And he used to do Danny Baker's radio show as well before he did a boo-boo. Yeah, so it also produces Gardener's Question Time of all things. Which, loads of Radio 4 stuff. Does loads of TV documentaries or music documentaries. So basically all the stuff you see on BBC 4, is a lot of stuff of that is produced by his company. A remarkable sort of post-TV presenting career that he's had.
That's impressive. Incredible. Well done.
And last year, he got made an MBE for services to radio.
Well done.
Yeah. So I thought, wow, that he...
A masturbator extraordinaire.
Must surely be, I would think probably the richest ex-Tomorrow's World presenter, because there's a lot of money in independent producing.
I would have thought so.
And he owns the whole shebang.
Well done. He owns... Oh, well, I mean, fair play. And that's really incredible.
Yeah.
I find that very impressive, yeah. An MBE and, something else, yeah. I'm so used to hearing people saying, XYZ is a something else production for or whoever. Oh, that's really impressive, yeah.
Well, anyway, back to space junk.
We have discussed a piece.
No, I also tried to present it first.
Absolutely. No, and you're right, but there was just so much to discuss that had nothing to do with the content of the piece, which I think says a lot, really.
I mean, I have to say, because I had the day off, I actually did quite a lot more research than I normally.
Oh, good man.
I really enjoyed it today. I have to say, total opposite of medical things. I love anything space. Love space stuff. I mean, this isn't even a particularly interesting thing to do with space. I just, I like pictures of satellites and reading about them and things like that. There's always something interesting going on. Do you have anything to actually say about that piece that wasn't about the presentation of it?
Not really. I suppose space junk has always been an issue and it's still an issue and nothing's ever been done about it. So it feels like on the one hand you could say it's times, on the other hand you could just say it's like, it's nonsense. It's another one of these pieces that we've seen where they spend 80 to 90% of the time laying out the issue and then very little time actually discussing the solution to it, which really ought to be the key point of a Tomorrow's World. It's not the news, it's Tomorrow's World. It's about, what are we going to do about it? And I remember watching and thinking any minute now they're going to talk about what the solution is. And then, if memory serves me correct, they say, when someone starts talking about what we should do about it, the answer was we should do something about it.
I don't think they name any solutions, do they?
Not at all. No.
I'll have a few here, but everything is about the detection of these things and the fact that it's a real worry. We need to do something about it. But if nothing's being done about it, why are you telling me this? I'm here to see the inventions and the innovations.
Absolutely.
However, Mark.
Yes.
Perhaps, and we've got a slight running thing about the kickbacks and the bumps.
Yes.
Did you notice that there was a certain satellite launching company that was quite prominent in that at all?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, Iridium. If it starts with Stableford telling us Iridium doing this and that, Then at the end, it displays a little promotional thing for Iridium. I think probably it was a sneaky little advert for Iridium. That's what I think.
Well, I mean, because that makes perfect sense because there's no real justification for it.
So
actually.
I went deep and found out what Iridium is. What is this? I'd never heard of it.
You went deep, did you?
Well, I mean, I just read an article about it, but
like a pig.
Quite
out there sniffing around for truffles. Yeah.
Motorola of phone fame.
Oh.
I'm trying to think of something else they're famous for. Do
you know, I would have been happy if you said Motorola fame, but
Motorola of Motorola fame. They spent over 12. So they started this project in the mid 1980s, and it took them 12 years to get it off the ground. And they spent $5 billion on it, right? And what it is a system, as I think Howard said, it's 66 satellites in low Earth orbit all around the world. And the reason there has to be 66 of them is because they're so low down to the sort of near the Earth that they need to be able to communicate with each other. Like normal satellites are a long way out, like 22,000 miles out. So you only need a couple of them to cover the whole Earth's surface. But these ones are so close to the Earth.
The line of sight is so slim.
But obviously that's hugely, absurdly expensive. And back then $5 billion was really big stuff. And what it was is that, I mean, it's still running today, this system. But it's, when anybody's out in the middle of nowhere and they go, oh, I need to use a satellite phone rather than a normal phone. It's them. It's basically they run on that. It's the only system that works. It's the only system where a bloke could stand at the North Pole, get one of these out, and dial a number and talk directly to someone at the South Pole, and it would literally just go via satellite. It wouldn't go it wouldn't go through any other internet. Nothing. It's the only direct system that does that. But the thing is, by the time this was launched in 1998. No one needed that system. I mean, no one in the North Pole needs to immediately talk to somebody in the South Pole.
No, it's an interesting example of...
And the calls cost like $30 a minute because it's such an expensive system. So no one took it up. So the whole thing just went bankrupt a year later. But then in comes this bloke, this enterprising businessman, and bought the entire system for $25 million from the insolvency people. So $25 million for an entire globe encompassing satellite system is quite a bargain.
Yeah.
And obviously he's got such comparative low setup costs. He then was able to make vast, huge profits from it because it still has loads of uses.
Yeah.
Because the American military absolutely love it. It's they if you're out in the middle of the desert, need to call in an airstrike or something. Perfect. So he's got big government contracts, and he's apparently living the life of Riley from this absolute bargain of a satellite system. Yeah, I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well done, him, entrepreneur.
Yeah, and obviously the reason why this system's particularly concerned with space junk is because it's in low orbit, and that's where all the space junk is. So that's why it's connected with this thing. But there are still no solutions to space junk.
No,
because it costs money to clear up, and there's no profit in it. So it's like all pollution. Unless you force people to clear it up through policy, they just won't do it. And because there's no real policies, not many policies running the outer space, then no one's come to any agreement how to clear it up.
I like your analogy. Where I think it falls down, Russ, is that you can actually induce good behaviour in people by kind of inspiring them to recycle. It's very difficult for people to get a long enough ladder to go up and start clearing out space junk. It's only really governments and private enterprises that can get involved. And I don't suppose I suppose you could offer to clear it up for a hefty profit, but
But because it happens these incidents still happen. I mean, there's a lot more space junk up there now than there was during this was filmed. They reckon that there's probably 128 million pieces of debris up there. Anything ranging from a centimetre to 10 centimetres.
Crikey.
However, it still causes hardly any incidents. I mean, because it's still quite a big place up there. So it's only, I think, the only time people are going to pay for it to be cleared up is when it starts actually messing stuff up a lot.
Or when we end up like Earth in Wall-E. Yeah.
Yeah. But the other advantage, obviously, is that anything drops out of orbit, it just burns up. So you've got this sort of natural sort of way of getting rid of it. So the easiest ways to get rid of it...
Forward thinking, yeah.
The easiest way to get rid of it is just to basically poke it.
Push it down into the atmosphere.
It burns up. And if people have thought of ways of doing this, there's, some of them saying, well, just incorporate a self-destruct mode where the thing automatically pushes itself into the atmosphere. That's the easy thing to do. Or you can send up little robots that do it for you. But the best one, I thought, was what they call a laser broom, right? Yeah, exactly.
I'm leaning in.
It's got a laser in it. Now, obviously, when I read the words laser broom, I was imagining like a sort of Moonraker type situation where, they're firing lasers at these lumps and they're disintegrating. But no, it doesn't work like that at all. What they do is they fire the laser at it, and because everything's so affected by stuff in space, that even the power of a laser light on something is strong enough to knock things out of orbit. Oh. So they fire it from Earth and knock these things out of orbit and then just let them burn up. Oh. So, hopefully laser brooms are the ones that are going to win out, because I love the idea of seeing the old laser brooms firing off.
It was only 2 episodes ago we were talking about duck hunt. Who knew it would come back?
Yeah. Yeah, actually, if they could gamify it, couldn't they? They could have people sitting at home just trying to shoot the stuff out in real life out of the sky. Everybody can have a laser broom on the roof of their house.
I have no doubt there is a proportion of the world who, if you gave them a leaderboard, would absolutely... they would be sitting there in their backyards every night. Oh, man.
You'd have somebody going for the highest score and trying to shoot an actual satellite out of the sky.
God damn blast, yeah. The International Space Station better buckle up.
10,000 points. That's space junk. And of course, the film Gravity would never have come around without it.
No, I couldn't help but think of that. When I was watching the wonderful computer graphics showing what a cascade was, I immediately thought of Gravity.
I reckon, I think Alfonso Cuarón owes the special effects department of tomorrow's world a huge debt of gratitude.
Well, I mean, he's hugely inspired by Stanley Kubrick, so it makes sense that he'd watch one of Stanley Kubrick's primary sources.
And now, this idea may sound like a practical joke, but it's actually a serious bid to improve airport safety: the collapsing runway. It's designed by a group in America, and it's meant to save lives if an aircraft overshoots the runway.
The aeroplane which skidded off a runway at New York's Kennedy Airport last week has been winched out of the shallow water where it
couldn't stop the plane. He tried to turn off the runway, but skidded into the shallows of Hong Kong Harbour. It took nearly
Both these crashes happened because pilots simply ran out of runway. Over the years, planes have become bigger, heavier, and need more room to stop. Many older airports simply haven't got space to extend their runways to cope with every eventuality. So engineers at New York's Kennedy Airport looked for a new way to stop a plane in trouble. They've created the collapsible runway. Made from something called cellular cement, its honeycomb structure actually crumbles under the weight of a plane.
Happy landings, Mark.
Oh, thank you, Russ.
Nice little brief one here.
Yeah, quick to the point.
I just really like the idea of sitting in an aeroplane as it does a pretend crash. I'd love to have a go at that, I think. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, there is, within the piece, there is like CCTV footage of the inventors of the collapsible runway sitting in an empty plane, I think having a great time. And I have a sneaky suspicion that was the whole point of this entire thing.
Definitely, yeah. It was sort of reminded me slightly of that. Have you ever watched the program Mythbusters?
Yes, I'm aware of Mythbusters.
Sometimes you think that the only reason they're doing these things is
for
so
the
they
laugh.
can have a go at doing the stunt.
Mm.
A lot of bemulleted workmen.
Oh,
bemulleted and shirtless workmen laying this new type of runway that they've developed.
Yeah. What I found interesting was that it starts off with footage of a crash at Hong Kong's old airport, and is it also JFK as well?
Well, that's where they're.
It is JFK. Yeah. Well, it's one of the New York. Yeah, it is, and both the airplanes ran out of runway and were stopped. End up crashing, I suppose, in shallow water, and I couldn't help but think that you didn't need a collapsible runway, you just need to have shallow water at the end because it clearly works.
Yes, yeah.
No one died.
But you know what? People might not be able to swim, Mark. You can drown
It was shallow water,
drown in
Russ.
3 inches water.
It's true. With you know, yeah, okay. No, great point, Russ. Thanks. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I'm fascinated because I know you've done the research, so I'm really excited to know whether it's been rolled out. But it just seems like one of those things where, like, it seems like a really good idea, but when you sit down and you think about the logistics of a collapsible runway, this kind of shreddable concrete that slows down a plane, is that if any plane did go through it, like, it would probably shut down the airport for days, if not weeks, because, you know, the one thing airports don't like on their runways is lots of little tiny shards of material that could be sucked into jet engines and destroy it. But also, like, you'd have to replace the collapsible runway, which I'm sure probably again would take real time. So it just feels like one of those safety things where, like, love it, guys, I love it, I love what you've done here. But ... I mean, you know, that's why, hey, let's just have a pond.
However, Mark,
yeah,
ponds. What do ponds attract? Ducks.
Oh, they do attract
and
ducks.
geese,
You're right. Yeah.
and swans. And I mean, just ask Sully Sullenberger. What's the worst thing for a jet engine?
Yeah.
Waterfowl.
Waterfowl, that's true. But then, I mean, if you don't have ducks and geese, are you saying that are you basically saying that you want to make all falcons and eagles unemployed?
I am saying that, Mark. Yeah.
Shame on you.
Well, you will be surprised to learn then, Mark, that this has been laid in 112 runways in the United States.
Oh, in the US?
Yes. Only
okay.
only the US.
Yeah, all right, well, there you go.
So obviously...
I am surprised, actually.
So somebody at the whatever company makes this has been paying some bunts to the designers of American runways, I guess. Yeah, so it's called, they call it EMAS, Engineered Materials Arresting System. Yes, as I said, 112 runways in America. There's only 15 places in the rest of the world that use it.
Anywhere nearby?
I think, I didn't write it down, but I think Paris has got one.
Okay.
I think it might be the case that because America's got a lot more airports, and they're probably they're in smaller locations, so you might not be able to guarantee that there's a pond at the end of it, or indeed, you know, any sort of a way of just letting stuff crash. So maybe they've got more concerns about that sort of thing over there. Whereas our airports tend to be big international jobs that have got plenty of space after them, haven't they? Or at least some sort of harbour in front of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Or reservoirs like Heathrow. Yeah. Or if they're large enough that basically the government will just buy up land, compulsory purchase it, and just do something about it, which I suppose is an option for a lot of these places. No, I am surprised that it... Yeah, I mean, it clearly works. I mean, having said that, I mean, the plane's only going 70 miles an hour, and I suppose it's probably less powerful than planes these days. I wonder how... But then if it's a smaller regional airport, you know, realistically, how many Airbus A380s are there landing there?
Yeah. It did look like from the list that it was mainly sort of Gulfstreams and things like that were making use of it.
Fine, I get that. I think that makes sense then, yeah.
Probably like multi-millionaires seeing that that footage of those blokes crashing, going, I want a piece of that, deliberately crashing their planes into it.
Jonesing for a fix of collapsible runway action, yeah?
Yeah. Well, apparently, the other thing, I'll say a report, possibly sponsored by the company that makes this, but the report said that the first 11 times that this thing went into action and actually saved the aircraft, they estimated that it saved a total of $1.9 billion.
Okay.
And, you know, stuff not going wrong costs.
Stuff not going wrong costs. Is that the official line item on the...
which means it's paid back dividends to the people who've used it.
Yeah, all right. Well, I mean, all it seems to do is like shred the landing gear, which I imagine is much more replaceable than, I suppose, any passenger or a plane in total. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's fine. It just also... Yeah, okay, cool. I'm in. I want one. Where can I get it? Oh, maybe I just want to travel somewhere. I just want to go somewhere, Russ.
Even if it's just the end of the runway.
Oh, I dream of the end of the runway, Russ.
Now, what weapon do the police turn to when they're searching out illegal drugs or trying to find a dead body? Yep, the detective's best friend, the sniffer dog. But how do you stop your LSD sniffing dogs from becoming a pack of canine drug addicts? Chemists in St. Louis now have the answer. Bottled artificial smells. Philippa Forrester's on the trail.
Go for a walk in the woods, they said. Go as far away as you can. Don't worry if you get lost, they said. It'll be fine.
Ivory, you found me! Hello, good girl. It's amazing when you think about it, isn't it? Ivory's found me all the way out in the woods using just the scent that I left behind me as I walked along. Something us humans couldn't do in a million years.
In fact, Ivory's an experienced search and rescue dog, specially trained to find people, alive or dead. But have you ever wondered how to train a dog to sniff out human remains? It isn't easy. I'll spare you the details, but it involves body parts and fridges. And take it from me, it's not pleasant. So, chemists at Sigma Chemical Company in St. Louis looked for an alternative. They wanted to make life easier for both dogs and their handlers by designing artificial scents for them to train with.
Well, that was interesting, Russ. But here's the question. Do we address the elephant in the room?
Well, in an M. Night Shyamalan-type twist, I have done no research on Philippa Forrester.
You haven't?
No, I'm keeping her all to myself.
I mean, let's get down to brass tacks here. I mean, there's a lot in that piece that we can discuss, but the real reason we're doing a podcast about tomorrow's world is because of your... Oh, how does one put it? Actually, I don't know how. Your insatiable love of Philippa Forrester.
Is that the reason why we're doing it? Maybe it is. Maybe deep down it is the reason we're doing it.
Oh, that's what I think. I was just waiting. I was waiting for an episode from the 90s to come along.
It does give me an opportunity to watch lots of things with Philippa Forrester in them every so often, I guess. No, I took the executive decision, and I think you'll agree with this, that she went on to become the main presenter of the programme just the following year to this. So I thought I will wait until we do an episode where she's the main presenter. Okay. And because, you know, I'd like to do a lot of research, and I didn't have the time to do all the research I wanted to do about her today. Because I was reading about satellites and Jess Nelson.
Yeah, okay. Research, yeah. Dirty bird. No,
it's something for the listeners to look forward to as well.
I know, because something's coming, my friends. I think that's really impressive, and it's quite right too. I mean, you know, there's a couple of good, all right, great.
I think we need to get a few more episodes under our belts before the listeners should witness my depraved teenage mind.
Yes, and bearing in mind earlier, I did explain how you have continued to live a teenage life. There's a lot there. That's a big well to tap into. Okay, well, if we're not going to, I like the fact that let's leave that hanging there. Let's leave your filth just tinkling in the wind. Well, let's talk about the actual piece itself then.
It opens with Philippa doing what I think is a tribute to the Rutger Hauer 1980s film Blind Fury. Have you ever seen Blind Fury?
No, I've not, and it's only because you added a picture into the notes that I see. She's wearing and I mean this quite literally, a gigantic, oversized adult baseball cap, which swamps her.
I will actually on our YouTube version of this, I will play a very brief clip from the trailer because it's in the trailer. The Blind Fury.
Russ, play it right here. Brilliant. I see what you mean.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because he spends near the beginning of the film. He's walking around Florida or wherever. I think it's Florida. He's walking around wearing this huge oversized baseball cap, these big sunglasses, and he's got, because he's blind. That's the name of the film. Mm-hmm. He's got a blind man stick.
A blind man stick.
Do they have a proper name, a blind man stick?
I don't know.
Whatever the technical name for a blind man stick is.
Well, it's too late for us to pretend that we know, so...
Philippa opens this VT walking through what appears to be possibly Florida or some sort of hot American woodland, wearing a giant oversized baseball cap, big dark sunglasses, and waving a stick in front of her as if she's blind. It must be some sort of reference. Otherwise, what's she doing?
You sure about that? Yeah, okay, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, definitely. I 100% agree with you, Russ. It seems highly likely. So, I mean, this is about pseudo sense.
Yes.
And we are, I mean, let's talk about John Revell, who, at the time when you were 15, there's no way you would have bothered even thinking about John Revell or anyone else who appears in that VT. You had eyes for only one person.
Yeah.
Well, with the jaded eyes of a 40-year-old, John Revell he's the guy who comes up with the idea of the pseudo scent. He is, I think, the look he has on this program, and I mean, like, you know, his hair and his clothes and his glasses. Nowadays, sex pest, right? Like someone to be avoided.
Yeah.
I find him throughout this whole thing slightly creepy, but mostly endearing.
I think, considering the opening before they start talking about drugs, and I'll get to that later. But before that, they're talking about the dogs as dead body sniffers.
Yeah, cadavers.
And you could be very creepy if you dedicated your life to recreating the smell of cadavers.
Yeah,
you know,
but every time he talks about the scent in the real world, he kind of he does this kind of subconscious little smile to himself, and that could be creepy, but I find it quite endearing, like, because he's just slightly socially awkward. He seems like I don't know. I think I love him. I think he's just a joy. I found my heart melting about it. I don't know. There was no ring in his finger. He's not married, as far as I can work out. It's like, I wonder what kind of life he led. He was very sweet / incredibly creepy. You know, by 90s standard, perfectly normal. But by today's standard, definitely to be avoided. So he and actually Philip Forrester talks. She talks about how I won't tell you how dogs are able to track cadavers, but let me just tell you how dogs are able to track cadavers, which is a really weird, like she tries to beat around the bush, but then just literally spells it out. She
mentions a fridge full of body parts.
I won't tell you how it's done, but let me just it involves the body parts of people and fridges. So, okay, thanks, Philippa. I think I've worked that one out.
Yeah, and once again, they're working in a near pitch dark lab.
Absolutely, yeah. At least it's consistent. Sort
of to illustrate the world of crime and drugs, they've added some stock footage.
Oh, bloody hell. The opening credits is Police Squad.
Yeah, to really get us, and like some sort of drug deal going on.
The gritty, mean streets of 1970s New York. Yeah. Apparently that was the only footage they could find of. By the way, you don't actually need to illustrate what a police car looks like.
No.
It's completely unnecessary.
And if you are going to do it, don't do it using a full Crown Victoria from about 1976.
No, indeed.
Or at least use a 1990s police car to make it look like.
By the way, bearing in mind they were filming with the police, was probably outside the building they were filming in.
Yeah.
Anyway, pseudosense, and the idea is, now, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I understood this to be, because like the whole cadaver thing is the origin story. It's nothing to do with that whatsoever.
No. Once again, another traditional Tomorrow's World thing of telling us about something which sounds interesting, but that not being the thing they're going to actually tell us about.
Arguably more interesting. It's the classic TW bait and switch, Russ.
Yeah.
We all know and love it. That's what it is. So he's so successful creating this pseudo scent of death that the police ask him to create the pseudo scent of drugs. Because apparently, and I don't know, it sounds apocryphal, but my assumption, my reading of this, is that there is an inordinate number of trainee sniffer dogs who overdose on actual drugs because of their sheer enthusiasm, and that they need something else to train them on before they can put them out in the real world. Is that am I right?
Would you like to have a guess? How many drug addicted sniffer dogs there are around at the moment?
I start from the perspective of assuming it's apocryphal and utter nonsense. But whenever anyone asks you, do you want to have a guess? Zero.
It turns out, Mark, your pal, is it John Revell, his name?
John Revell, yeah.
Is nothing more than a flim-flam man.
He's
a shyster, a fraudster. I mean, he may well have produced the smell of dead bodies, but I mean, I reckon I could produce the smell of dead bodies and have done many times after a heavy night out. His drug sniffing things are not in use anywhere.
But the bottles look so professional.
So, right, there's no doubt. Let's start with Sniffer Dogs, okay? Sniffer Dogs, no, there's no doubt they are 100% genuine, great bunch of lads.
Absolutely.
Apparently, like a dog's sense of smell is 2,000 times better than humans. They can smell anything. Actually, I found a list. Listen to this list of things that dogs can sniff out, right? I won't read them all out, but interestingly, human remains, bed bugs, cancer, drugs, explosives, endangered species, guns, false documents.
False documents?
Yeah.
They can scent the smell of fraud?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Low blood sugar, ivory, currency, mobile phones, mould, termites, gourmet fungi, and this is the really weird one. Apparently, do you know in America the Subway chain of sandwich restaurants? They had their former mascot was a
Jared.
called Jared, who turned out to be
Operation U-Tree.
A nonce.
Yeah.
Apparently, he was caught out by a child porn sniffer dog that managed to find found his hard drives and whatever.
And they sniffed child porn. That is certain
maybe
nonsense.
they just sniffed the hard drives, but what I read anyway. So dogs fantastic at sniffing things, smelling things, wonderful, no problem with that. The weird thing here is that specifically in this VT, they use the example of LSD. And I think the reason they use it is because he's apparently just invented this.
Yeah, that's it's the new product in the line.
LSD chemically has zero smell. I don't look this up. It has no smell whatsoever. It's impossible to track with sniffer dogs. You can kind of track it down if it's been near other drugs. So, of course, quite often the drug dealer will keep all these drugs together. So you could theoretically find the LSD if you did that. But then you might as well train your dog to smell the other drugs. There's no point in training it to smell LSD.
And then just be delighted when you also find LSD.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So whatever Revel is turning into this powder for the dog, it is not smelling of LSD unless it smells of absolutely nothing, in which case how's the dog going to find it? Yeah, it's not real at all. And obviously the other thing is that you can only train a sniffer dog to smell apparently between 3 and 5 different drugs. They can only learn so much. If you're a copper, who do you want to bust? You want to bust the big heroin dealers, the big cocaine dealers, all that.
Yeah.
Some hippie with his LSD.
Yeah.
It's not worth having a specially trained dog for that, is it?
No.
So police don't have LSD sniffer dogs. I don't know where Revel found this particular police department that wanted one, because where is this place? How are they having such an LSD problem they need it? That's bizarre. And then the other thing, sorry, I don't want to sound like, it sounds like I'm going full Timothy Leary here, but is the absurd
reference
amount,
for the kids?
The absurd amount of fake LSD that he uses, because he goes, 10 to 20 grams should do, doesn't he? When he pours out the fake LSD into that towel, he pours out 10 to 20 grams for the dog to find.
Yeah.
LSD is an insanely strong chemical, right? I looked up what the recreational dose of it is. The recreational dose, as in like one tab that someone would take to have a trip, is 100 micrograms, which is 0.1 milligrams, which means 20 grams of LSD would have 200,000 doses in it. What drug dealer walks around with 200,000 doses of anything?
But you are, and I get that, but you're confusing LSD with his fake scent. I mean, that's the thing, is like, that to me, the fact that they have to use 10 to 20 grams of this stuff is actually an admission of how little scent there actually is, that they have to pile this stuff up. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's not fake LSD. It's like, it's the scent, but obviously there is no scent. So they have to kind of spoon it out. Like, bird's custard.
So do you think it's like is it like eau de toilette is diluted parfum, that sort of thing?
Yes, absolutely. It's exactly that kind of thing. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So even with that, he's some sort of scam man, because he's basically bolting out his products.
Flim flam guy. Yeah. snake oil salesman. Is that what you're saying? Don't you take my John Revel away from me.
And also, in the overdose front, I was looking at how much LSD would it take to overdose, and no, they've not been able to find anybody who's overdosed on it yet. And I read there was a news report of a 46-year-old woman who mistook a big pile of LSD for cocaine. So she snorted a line of it, which is obviously a lot more than...
Jesus. Well, sorry, hello, what?
So she snorted a line of LSD rather
Bloody
than
hell.
thinking it was cocaine. So it was 550 times the normal dosage, 100 micrograms.
Yeah.
She wasn't great for 12 hours. However, after that, she was fine. And she found that the foot pain she'd been suffering since her 20s had gone away.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, again, something maybe that Dr. J. Bruce Smith might be able to try in his arthritic patients.
Oh, bless him. How interesting. Okay, yeah. So, yeah.
So anyway, to conclude, a drug sniffer dog could not overdose on
specifically
LSD, but it wouldn't overdose on anything else because the people handling them are keeping a very close eye on them.
Well, that's what I assumed.
And as soon as it finds anything, it paws the ground and does all work. It's very
gets excited.
Whatever. And then they may move in and investigate whatever it's found. They don't just let it loose in a garage.
No,
and it just munches through the drugs like some sort of.
The dogs aren't rewarded with a quick fix. They're rewarded with a ball or a bonio. That's what they're excited about. Like they're delighted to find the set. The whole thing just felt like it was nonsense. And maybe I was being generous with apocryphal. Bullshit is probably the correct term. All right, brilliant. Well, that's that then. Looking forward to talking about Philippa Forrest in the future. Can I just say, I also really like the fact that Mr. Revel, and who, by the way, I know he's not a doctor or anything like that. It doesn't come up in the graphic or the chyron that he's a doctor or has any. He's just John Revel. But John Revel and the two coppers who are involved in the police have a delightful apple shape to them. This is like classic American men. Yeah. They're a little bit hey, there's donuts. Don't eat themselves.
I watched Terminator 2 last week, the first time in a long time.
Oh, with the twins, yeah.
They reminded me slightly.
Yes, absolutely. They do. Totally true.
Yeah.
They can even do the smell of explosives,
Oh, to Guy Fawkes, eh? That's all for this week.
We're back again next Monday.
Yes, it's Monday from now on, 7:30, BBC One. Don't miss us.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Before we go any further, Mark.
Yes.
Can I talk about... I should have mentioned this in the previous segments at some point, but I've forgotten to do it. And the credits have just reminded me. How each segment was started with this absolutely atrocious bit of text. And each one was it was if you go into Microsoft Word and use the word art thing, when you first ever got a computer with different fonts and you played with them, and then your dad's doing the parish magazine and he uses all the fonts in it. I don't know, that sort of thing.
Sorry, hang on. For listeners at home, there is no way Russell's dad did the parish magazine.
No, I'm just imagining I get it. I remember our parish magazine. Yeah. I used parish magazine to come through the door, and whoever's dad had done it, he'd clearly just got hold of a computer and was just using every font he could.
Well, don't forget,
his hands on.
I mean, we are only a year after the incredibly successful launch of Windows 95.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So each of these segments have these really awful,
title cards,
terrible looking title cards.
They're awful. No, that's true. I thought we talked about it, but no, you're absolutely right, because it's infuriating, not least because they are all equally awful in unique ways. But that's not to take away from the really awkward bit of banter between Howard and Shanaz there at the end. It's strange because obviously the joke is appalling.
Okay, out of the jokes now, we've got dialing. Last week it was was it dialing a fly out of my soup?
Yeah.
This week it's
Ode Guy
Fawkes. Which do you think is worse?
Wow. I was not expecting to be challenged this evening. Normally, this is supposed to be just you and me chatting, just having fun. But I was not expecting to really be pushed to the limits of my. So that was the end of the show.
Yeah.
And I don't know, in previous episodes, I mean, certainly the last episode, no, not the last episode, the most recent episode, which is the 1987 episode, there's that great moment where the show ends and the camera pulls back to reveal all the items that had been displayed in that show.
I enjoyed that bit, yeah.
Yeah, that was really good. That was really enjoyable. Nothing like this at all. I mean, they basically can't wait for it to be over.
No. They just play the title sequence again. And they do, and they tell us what's happening next week.
Yes.
Which means that next week's already been made.
Yes, true. Absolutely. Yeah. So nothing new can tarnish next week's already. But yeah, that's true. Yeah, absolutely. I suppose there's always a part of me that always kind of assumed that Tomorrow's World was kind of. I mean, obviously it wasn't. But that it was kind of waiting to see what might happen in science that week. But
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Russ, we can't make the program any longer, and we wouldn't want to. So, so all that is left is for us to audit this show, because otherwise there is literally no point in us releasing it.
Absolutely none.
No. The people deserve so much more than us prattling on for not enough time.
We need to show our working though, Mark. That's why we need this.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. We have to legitimize this. First things first, though, before I ask the usual questions, can you give us some context about, was it 21st of October 1996?
21st of October 1996. Well,
I am 16.
Where should we start? We're starting with the
15.
UK box office, shall we? What films were we going to see this week? I would say probably this is around. I started going to the cinema on my own, probably the mid-90s.
Yeah, definitely.
Don't think I saw any of these at the cinema though.
Ooh, I have to say I'm quite excited about this because go on. You gonna do the full top 10 or top 5? What?
10-1.
Yeah.
In at number 10 is the Kurt Russell disappointing remake Escape from LA.
Oh wow, yeah, crikey. Okay, already I know this is not a good month. Carry on.
At number 9, it's the Keanu Reeves action spectacular, where he evades, I believe he evades some sort of nuclear explosion on a motorbike. Chain reaction.
Oh my god, okay.
Number 8.
Number 8.
Classic, Toy Story.
Oh, okay, fabulous.
I mean, this God knows how long this has been in the charts.
From the summer, bloody hell, crikey.
I mean, this has earned, up to this, right, this week it's taken £140,000. But up to now it's earned $33.5 million.
Jeez Louise.
It's done 10 times the box office anything in here. Number 7, never heard of this. The Adventures of Pinocchio, but it looks like, that sort of like cheap Euro.
Yeah, okay.
Euro animation type stuff.
What do they call it? Euro porridge? Euro pudding? I can't remember. Yeah.
Number 6, Breaking the Waves.
the Lars von Trier film. That's a good film. I saw that in the cinema.
Number 5. I've never seen this. I've never seen this. Number 5. Have you seen this? It's The Wind in the Willows, directed by Terry Jones, starring Steve Coogan and Eric Idle.
I have. It's not great.
No. Number 4, another film I've completely forgotten about, which I've never seen. Jack, starring Robin
Oh my
Williams.
God, I have seen that. It's appalling.
What happens there? Is he like a kid? Is he a kid in a man's body or something?
He's yes. I suppose that's the right way of putting it. Yeah, It's not that he's a man who acts like a kid. He's like a child who his body ages too quick.
Right, but it's not like big. It's
no. It's a medical condition.
It's like a medical version of
big. Yeah. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Actually, this website, the website I'm looking at is called Salty Popcorn, and I've just noticed that it's sort of Rotten Tomatoes style scoring things.
Yeah.
And this is the score of this is 20% crap, which is an interesting way of scoring things.
Yeah.
Anyway, number 3, the Kevin Costner golf classic Tin Cup.
Oh yeah.
Number 2, The Nutty Professor.
Oh, great.
Which I've never seen.
No.
And number 1, Dragonheart, which is...
Oh, is that the Sean Connery dragon thing?
Is that the Sean Connery one? Yes, it is the Sean Connery one. Yeah. There's a few dragon films around this time, wasn't there? But yeah, this is the Sean Connery one where he voices a dragon.
I'll breathe fire on you.
Which I have not... I think I did see back in the day, but I imagine the CGI in that is appalling. I don't know.
Ropey old dough. Yeah, no, it cannot be good.
No.
Okay, wow. I mean, that's 1/3 cemented me in the air, Russ. Is there anything else you can help me get there further?
Well, you're getting you're putting your headphones on. Did you have your mini disc player at this point?
I don't know, but I had a Discman.
Crikey. Well, here we go. Top 10. Number 10.
Yeah.
Rotterdam by the Brutefield South.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'd like to tell you that I went to Rotterdam a few weeks ago.
You did?
Day trip. And
was it nice?
That song was playing in my head all the time.
No way.
It really, really annoyed me.
Yeah, but you did that, not the Beautiful South.
Well, my unconscious brain did it, and it annoyed me. Anyway.
Okay.
What was it? No, number 9. I Love You Always Forever by Donna Lewis. Do we know that?
I don't remember that one now.
Number 8. Beautiful Ones.
Oh, I do remember it. I love you always, forever, here and now.
Oh, that one, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Number 8, Beautiful Ones by Suede.
Oh, yeah, wow, okay.
Number 7, Breakfast at Tiffany's by Deep
Oh,
Blue
wow.
Saxon.
Bloody hell. This really is cementing me into 96.
6, a song which I absolutely hated at the time. Weirdly, don't mind it so much now. I think because it just reminds me of the 90s in a very pleasant way. But it's You're Gorgeous by Baby Bird.
Oh, no, that's a kind of a classic, isn't it?
Number 5 is It's All Coming Back to Me Now by Celine Dion. No, I don't know. Celine Dion all sounds the same to me.
Yeah.
Number 4, Flying by Cast. No, I don't know that one either. Do you know that one?
I do, yeah.
Number 3, absolute solid gold banger, Insomnia by Faithless.
Oh, crikey, yeah.
Number 2, getting your boy band fix here with Words by Boyzone.
Oh, brilliant.
And then number 1, possibly the most 90s thing you could possibly have, Say You'll Be There by the Spice Girls.
Okay, brilliant, okay.
So yeah, definitely the 90s.
Yeah, and what can you pluck from the Argos catalogue?
Argos catalogue, most expensive kettle they sell.
Yeah.
Is, of course, it's a Russell Hobbs, the only electrical equipment I buy. I have genuinely started doing that, only buying things.
Oh, wow. We just bought a Russell Hobbs kettle a few weeks ago.
Great quality, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's very quiet.
A very expensive shiny number.
Yeah.
£39.50.
What's special about it?
It's shiny.
Shiny.
I honestly think the shininess is really added to the price. Because it doesn't have anything else. Oh, it's got a safety suction ring.
Ah, there we go. I mean, that's it. That's what I was looking for.
The old safety suction.
That's what it Brilliant. Is. All right. Well, I now feel very comfortable to ask you the next few questions. So, what's the most important invention? I think it's obvious.
Well, yeah, it's the cabbie kryptonite GPS.
Yeah, I think it is. Even though the actual VT wasn't specifically about GPS per se,
no,
it was about it actually being rolled out in a commercial way so that people can grab it and pluck it out of the air and use it.
Exactly.
And it's clearly, I mean, obviously it's still used.
And I mean, especially in cars, the idea of driving and reading a map, physically reading a map, it's absolutely insane.
Anachronistic, yeah. Especially in the last year, we moved house, especially in the last year. GPS is what gets you your deliveries and what gets you your food when you order it. It's, no, I mean, it goes without saying, GPS, most important invention. Most worthless invention? Here's the question, how many inventions were there? I mean, obviously the pseudo scent apparently is worthless.
The pseudo drugs are a complete con.
Yeah.
So that is worthless.
As you say, a flim-flam man. But actually, it's really, it feels like half the VTs, there were no inventions whatsoever. I mean, there was no invention for the pregnancy beating arthritis. It wasn't really invention.
No.
It was a theory. Space junk, there's no invention there.
No.
It was a theory. Collapsing runway, fair enough.
That was an
legit.
invention.
Yeah, so the worst one has to be the pseudo scent, the fake drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Most inaccurate prediction of the future? For me, I'm going to go back to space junk, not least because I wrote down here the idea that there would be a cascade effect that would bring down satellites, ruining everything. It's like, clearly they hadn't heard of Y2K. It had that level of impact. And that's my gut feeling.
It's inaccurate in that, it's not actually, still not caused any problems. So, yeah, don't need to worry about it, lads, until it does cause some problems, I guess.
Don't need to worry.
Although I actually would also add that dogs don't sniff out fake drugs. They use real drugs. So that is also inaccurate.
The whole thing's a nonsense. It's a Philippa Forrester enabler. That's what that segment is.
It certainly is.
Worst screw up by a presenter.
Well, problem here is that none of it's live. Perhaps the introduction is live. I doubt it is. Obviously, it's all pre-recorded VT, so they can cut everything out. So I would say the worst screw up by a presenter is Howard's trousers.
I was going to say, the second Howard collapsed into his wardrobe and rolled out the other side was the moment there was a screw up by a presenter. No, 100% agree, absolutely. Yeah. The rest of it is all, I will say at one point, Shanaz opens up the segment, which I think is about collapsing runways, and she's just leaning against the set.
She is. It's very slovenly.
Did not like it. Just very slovenly. Stand up straight.
Also, actually, the Space Junk Report.
Yes. Oh, yes. Flying Dales.
Both the what's it called? The
Chiron.
The Chiron. Oh, well done. Well remembered, Mark.
Thank you.
Chiron and Jez both call it Filing Dale, and it is definitely called Filing Dale.
That's a good one.
So my only thought on that maybe is because it was very clearly and very famously a top secret facility that they deliberately gave it a false name so people couldn't find it.
We didn't say actually that they film inside one of the rooms, and all they reveal is the comically oversized technology that they were using at the time. No, very true, but no, it's Howard's trousers. Best attempt at making something boring interesting.
For a start, I think it was too much effort to make things boring interesting with their silly Dutch angles.
Oh, I hadn't even thought about that, yeah.
And lighting.
Well, for the whole arthritis thing, it's not that... I don't want to be too cynical. The involvement of people, of actual sufferers, gives it a level of pathos that the piece itself doesn't earn. I think they're so aware of how little there is that they bring in people's actual pain to kind of make it seem like it has a purpose.
Yeah.
And I found that just upsetting, I suppose, actually would be the right word. Because, again, I was aware that this didn't really work, and I did not enjoy seeing people who I knew were going to end up heartbroken.
Also, I mean, getting a lookalike of Britain's most prolific mass murderer as the main subject of the VT.
I mean, with hindsight, Russ, that was a mistake, wasn't it? Yeah. And then, obviously, adding Philippa Forrester to something that doesn't work, obviously, is going to shut it up, isn't it? So,
certainly is. Certainly is, especially when she is walking around the
underground. What? No, keep stum, you filthy devil. Did we see anything in the episode that made it through to the future? Well,
we
GPS
saw quite a few things, I think.
Yeah, and satellite technology.
Yeah. A bit of a satellite-heavy episode, I guess. I would think it's probably things we didn't see get. Well, the drug thing we didn't see get through, and the arthritis thing it's slightly different. But other than that, everything else comes through, isn't it? We've got the phone
I think
thing,
so.
We've got GPS, we've got whatever the other thing was.
Well, this question kind of feels like it segues into the next one in a way that previous ones didn't. So the next question, the final question is always, what does this episode tell us about the date? So what does this episode tell us about the 21st of October 1996? And if I take that question and then ask again, did we see anything in this episode that made it through to the future? For the first time, I think we're seeing a Tomorrow's World that clearly is not going to make it into the future. Like this, it feels like this, we're probably reading too much into it, and obviously we have the value of hindsight. It's like, for the first time, I mean, even that horrible 1981 episode, that might just be a bad day. It might just be a bad day at work. But this episode feels like it is losing pace with time or with what's going on. And for the first time, I also don't think it tells us anything about 21st of October 1996. It doesn't tell us anything about the date. No. It tells us more about what's going on behind the scenes of Tomorrow's World. Yeah,
I think you're right there. Yeah. Probably the thing that we saw that made it through to the future most is the bbc.co.uk website.
Yes,
that came up at the end of the programme.
Yeah, I think we're both surprised by it, because I couldn't quite remember when... I mean, when did it... I remember the first time I went on the internet at someone's house, because I think we had the internet then, and I remember typing in bbc.com and ending up at, was it Boston Building Company? Who owned that URL for quite a long time until the BBC finally managed to persuade them that, they might have... I'm sure they paid handsomely, but they also kind of persuaded them that maybe it might be better served than it is. So I actually was surprised that there was a website at all, to be frank. But then, I mean, we are talking about, if anyone ever wants to do a spin-off of Tomorrow's World all the time. They can always do The Net all the time, which is that BBC Two programme that was on TV, I think about 94, 95, for a fair few years. And I remember watching the first episode of that, where you could send in a stamped self-addressed envelope and they would send you back a map of the internet. And I obviously basically regret, I have since subsequently tried to find one on eBay, and I regret not owning a map of the internet from 1994 or 95. So like it's both surprising and maybe unsurprising, you're right. I mean, of all the shows, Tomorrow's World should be the first, or should definitely have some kind of web presence. But it was also it also made it feel much more contemporary than it actually was. But beyond that, I mean, beyond the programme itself, does it tell us anything about October 96?
90s were quite boring.
Yeah. And apparently people had incredibly poor fashion taste.
yeah.
But definitely. Both of which I feel we can testify to.
But
I owned an orange shirt.
The thing is, you could say that 70s fashion taste was poor, but I think the thing is the 70s was so flamboyant.
Yes.
That I think there's about a chutzpah to it that it gets away with it.
I think you're right.
Whereas that 90s stuff is kind of conservative in the way it's cut and things like that, but it's just really badly shaped and
it's appallingly shaped
and badly coloured.
It's so undercooked that it's basically tepid. Like there's no sense of bravery or excitement whatsoever.
No. Yeah,
like
imagine if Howard had curtains in this.
Oh, I mean, and actually, that's one thing we said. Is like he looks as young as he did 9 years before.
Yeah,
his face and his hair hasn't changed.
No, there's not a mark on him.
Yeah,
remarkable.
All right, well, I think that seems like a good place to leave it, Russ. Well, they always say that the past is a foreign place. You should never go back, and I think I understand why, Russ.
They do say that, Mark, but I've got a huge library of Philippa Forrester VHSs that I'm going to break out of my secret cache.
Yeah, that begs to differ.
Until next time, Mark.
Yep.
See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.